answer your questions. So today we don't have a presentation for you. It will be more of a conversation. And the first question is coming from the link on SurveyMonkey, where you can pose your anonymous questions. Can I start asking you questions, Sarah?
I just want to start with an opening just to acknowledge we're in Toronto and we're in a bit of a heat wave right now, but it certainly definitely feels like it's kind of emerging into a full-blown spring, summer quickly piece here. And so just wanted to acknowledge the land and the people and, you know, each of you for being here and all of the work that the team has been doing to kind of keep things moving and keep things going. Oh. Can you hear me now? It sounds like someone couldn't hear me initially, but I just wanted to just acknowledge the communities and the people and across all of the regions that this initiative is meant to be supporting, and welcome you all to the office hours, as we're calling them, the question and answer kind of a phase, if you will. And so we're here to answer your questions. And we'll take as long as we need within the hour to answer those questions, and we'll take it from there. So now I'm good to.
Can anyone else hear us? Darlene is having issues, but I can hear Sarah. So let us know if you guys can hear us. Yeah, Janelle, might be unfortunately an issue of your computer, Darlene, because everyone else says that they can hear us. Hopefully you can figure it out.
Great. Sorry to hear you're having trouble, Darlene. You could also mute your phone, mute your computer, or turn the volume off on your computer and use one of the call-in numbers. Is also an option. We can put those into the chat box if that's helpful.
Sure. I will do that. I will do that right now, actually. 1 second.
So I will start by also acknowledging that I have medium-sized people in my house with me, and we're in a heat wave with a broken air conditioner. And so they are upstairs being helpful and away from me while I'm on my call, but may have to come downstairs because it's quite stifling upstairs in the top floor. So you may see people running behind me at some point.
Okay.
All right.
The first question, Sarah, in summary, they're asking to please clarify what gender lens means, because this is coming from a person that has a project that's not focused on gender specifically. It's a project in an environmental humanities and literature. So they are wondering, what would that mean? What does gender lens mean for a project that's not specifically for that purpose?
Yeah. So any innovative idea has the potential to be a fundable project, to be an eligible applicant. The idea of a gender lens is to just look at how we're reflecting the impact of equity from that gender lens on whatever project we're initiating. And we know that there are inequities for women and gender diverse folks, and that Indigenous women and gender diverse folks have like a double impact of inequities. And so applying a gender lens doesn't mean that the project itself needs to be focused on gender or gender equality, but that you are intentionally looking at how your project reflects the needs or the priorities or empowers Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit plus folks. And so that could be in who is the lead on the project, right? So is the innovation led by an Indigenous, woman or gender diverse person, but nothing else has to do with gender, but we're supporting an Indigenous woman or gender diverse person to be leading this new business or developing this new innovation idea. it could be looking at who's making the senior leadership decisions. So perhaps it's a friendship center or another organization that's the applicant, and the executive director or the director of that division is the lead applicant. But the innovation might be around, getting more Indigenous girls into tech, or it might be an innovation that is specifically targeting Indigenous women and girls to get them more involved, or has an intentional focus on making sure that there's equality in that we have an equal number of boys and girls, or that it's inclusive of gender diverse Two-Spirit peoples. So it can be looking at it across all of the different spectrums, and including like the governance, is there equal number of women on the board of directors? There's one of the medium people that I talked about. Is it, so is it a board that's already male dominated, but are you actively recruiting for Indigenous women or gender diverse folks on the board? Is the senior leadership or whoever's making decisions around the project, does it make sense that whoever's making the decisions are the people most impacted by those decisions? Is it hiring Indigenous women and women or girls? And or who's going to benefit from this program? It could be a mainstream innovative idea where the proceeds go into programs for women and girls, or the proceeds go into initiatives to support Two-Spirit and gender diverse peoples. Any of those ideas or any of those spectrums can be applied. It's just, we want you to be intentional about making sure that the equality is not just around Indigenous identity, but also around gender. Does that make sense? I could see a couple people on the call. If it makes sense, I see one person nodding. If there's anyone else that's confused by that, you can put it into the chat to say, I'm still not clear, and I will try to answer it again. I can give a couple of examples. Oh, I see a thumbs up. That's awesome. Another thumbs up. Okay, it's making sense, it seems. We want to make this as inclusive as possible, but also recognize and honor that we're funded by the Department of Women and Gender Equality at the federal level, as our primary funder for this initiative. And we also want to make things equal and equitable for people who haven't been served as effectively in our society.
Thank you, Sarah. I am reading your questions on the chat box and also on SurveyMonkey, so I'll be looking at both. The next question comes from Amelia, who joins us here right now. She's leading a project with 2 other young First Nation peoples, and they all identify as Two-Spirit LGBTQ+, and they're in a partnership with a registered nonprofit. So she's wondering if by outlining the partnership, if she can submit a proposal, although her group or their group is not yet registered.
Yes. So that registered organization is a legal entity which is eligible, and it sounds like they have a meaningful relationship with your group or project, and that you would be the lead on it. And so that sounds like it would be eligible in that capacity. We can't fund individuals. So sometimes we have smaller informal groups, say, a group of women who are doing some gardening in their local community, and they're getting more families to come and help them with gardening. But they've never registered their business because they didn't have funding before. They just kind of traded seeds and shared and pitched in some money. And maybe they had like a registration fee that collected money and somebody informally paid for it. They don't have a legal entity registered. And so we can't cut a check to an individual person to run that program. They would either have to register their business if they wanted to commercialize it, or make it into a not-for-profit, which is more intense because corporations are a lot more work, or they would need to partner with someone and then become the lead and be either hired or have some kind of a careful or clever kind of way that they're getting those funds to be supported. We need legally registered organizations that we can work with to develop the whole program funding kind of stream.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if I'm saying your name correctly, Agnes. Can you clarify what you mean? Your question says, I'm wondering if I can still qualify for funding. I'm located in Toronto. I would like to, please, if you can please clarify, what do you mean? And the next question, sorry.
So just in terms of being located in Toronto, so your business needs to be legally registered in Canada, anywhere in Canada, and it needs to be an eligible, legally registered business. But our program funding is available across urban, rural, remote, and northern First Nation communities or northern Inuit settlements. All of those spectrums are eligible. We know 85% of the Indigenous population lives in urban settings. And so this is open to everyone, whether you live in a home community, whether you live in the far north or a rural community or a remote community, or you live in Toronto. Everyone would be eligible under that kind of sense.
Please let us know if that was your question, Agnes. Thank you. And another question, this one's coming from SurveyMonkey. They're asking if there are specific exclusions for funding, for example, capital purchases.
So it's not a lot of money for capital purchases anyways, but no, this is, the funding for this is for innovation, development, and testing. And so the funding can't pay for land or buildings, right? We can't do capital development, capital spending. You can use money to pay rent on a space, but you can't buy a space.
Thank you, Sarah. And then Agnes added information that she's incorporated, and I replied in the chat box that yes, you can apply if you're incorporated.
Yes. So the eligible organizations are just legally registered in Canada. They can be a for-profit corporation, a not-for-profit corporation, a limited liability partnership, or a sole proprietorship.
Thank you. Amanda, who's here in the call, is asking, she says, I am curious if funding has been specifically allocated for youth or northern communities.
No, but we are very interested to get projects that are working to support youth and or northern communities. The funding is not specifically targeted to anything outside of the applying a gender lens and being for or by Indigenous, First Nations, Inuit, Métis peoples across urban, rural, remote, northern communities. But it can be in any sector, right? So someone talked about environmental innovation. There might be someone working in clean tech. There might be someone working in catering, in gardening. There can be social innovations. Maybe someone is an Indigenous woman who developed a really cool gadget. Has nothing to do with being marketable to an Indigenous community, or maybe it's like, they have this neat gadget that I'm even trying to think of what an example would be, but they have this neat gadget or tool or new app that they want to market to everyone, but they're an Indigenous woman who's leading it. That would be an eligible innovation.
Thank you. The next question is, let's see. Does the project have to be in a certain phase, or can they qualify for funding for product development?
So this is for innovation development. So if you already have the product, we're not at a phase where we're like just developing products that you're going to later sell if you already have it developed and tested. But if you have an innovation, maybe you have a prototype already and you want to test that prototype, whether it's going to work or not. A prototype could be a program or it could be a product, and you want to just develop it a little bit more and test it with a certain market, right? An example might be that you have this innovation program, this social program, and you want to see if it's going to be effective. So the Friendship Bench I gave as an example during the webinar, which is a global mental health initiative that started in Zimbabwe. And that was a research project to see if it reduced, if this Friendship Bench with cognitive behavioral therapy provided by grannies reduced anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. So they did a formal research project on that. It might be just a market test. You're like, I don't know if people are going to actually want to buy this product, or do we need to beta test it to see if it actually works the way we think it's going to work with the different kinds of program ways that it could be working.
Thank you. The next question is, oh, sorry, I have to scroll a little bit now. Is there one-on-one support available from the I3 team for developing an expression of interest?
Sorry, can you say that again?
If we're supporting people one-on-one for their expression of interest.
So if you haven't had your questions answered, you can submit them by email to us, or you can ask them here. If you still feel like your questions are not answered, then we can answer your questions. So we can't sit and write and edit your program application. There are other supports that you can also access and leverage, but they have some eligibility criteria of their own. For example, the Native Women's Association of Canada has a program to support Indigenous women entrepreneurs and gender diverse entrepreneurs to apply for grants and programs. And so I know that they're supporting some people to apply to this fund. So we can't write proposals for you or do edits for your proposals, but we can answer your questions. And so you can reach out to us directly if your questions are not answered in these forums.
And if you have specific questions about your application, this is the right forum to ask them. And we're hosting another one next Wednesday as well, if you need more time to develop it.
Yeah. Probably your question, like even if you think, oh, this only relates to me, it might actually relate to more people as well. And so asking your question, it could help more people. So please, we do encourage you to ask your questions, but some people might not want to share what their idea is and not know how to say their question without talking about what their idea is. And you might want to keep more private. So we can support you with one-on-one questions. And then if the question is a really a good one that we don't think has been answered yet, then we'll try to post that as well.
The next question is from Janelle, who's here in the call. In the expression of interest, oh, hi, Janelle. In the expression of interest, when saying the project is led by an Indigenous woman, how would you recommend saying that? And she's giving a few examples of how she would word it. And the first example is Janelle is an Indigenous woman who will be leading the project. Or she's asking, maybe she wants to give more details about herself. Janelle is from Rosso River and a mother of two. Her role will be, like, how many details should she be including about herself as an Indigenous woman leading the project?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we so often focus on making sure that we locate ourselves within the context of what we're doing and what our experiences are. This is around supporting innovation development again. So it's around supporting the innovation development and testing. And if it's led by an Indigenous woman, then that's like tick, you are an eligible innovation. If you think that your background to, where you're from or what your current context is relevant to your ability to lead your project and what your innovation or idea is, then you can include that within the character limits. But being an Indigenous woman and saying, this is led by an Indigenous woman, we are addressing gender equality because we are, this innovation and this organization, the project will be led by an Indigenous woman, or an Indigenous woman developed this and will be testing it. So it will be up to you to decide if those additional pieces of information support your idea or innovation more than talking about what the actual idea is. Remember, in this phase, we're looking for whether it's relevant and whether it's innovative. If you're invited to the full application, we will be looking for more information about who the team that will be leading this is. And that's when we're going to assess things like how well we think the team is equipped to deliver the project. Because we want to make sure that we're funding things that are having a likelihood of being able to do what they say they're going to do. But that's in the full application phase. So is it relevant and is it innovative? Does that make sense to know? Okay.
We got a thumbs up. And we have an example of a project here, and Marlene is wondering if she's eligible with this project. Cooking classes on software, and the students would learn on a tablet. And she teaches cooking, culture, and cuisine.
So if it's led by an Indigenous woman, if it's an Indigenous organization that is doing this kind of innovative idea, I would really just focus on how is it innovative and how is it relevant to the gender equality lens and to our challenge statement as presented. And so if you focus on those pieces, then it's an eligible application, and then that's where we're at with it.
You're welcome. I think that's what you said from reading your lips, Marlene. Jody is asking, she has a healthcare medical device that just launched in Canada that has the ability to improve full body blood circulation. Let's see. She's offering a lot of details about the item. And then she said, how quickly will you be making your decision after you, I think that's the question. How quickly will you be making your decisions after you receive applications?
Yeah. So this sounds like it's an established invention, not a new invention. And so the innovation might be testing it with a new population, being the Indigenous community. Does it work differently or is it more effective? In terms of what our timelines are, we're making funding decisions in September. We're notifying folks into October, early October, and working through the due diligence process in October, November, December. If it's an organization that has been through a due diligence process before, they'll probably move through it fairly quickly. If they are a new organization, there may be a lot more work to do. And we're going to be developing a module and some capacity building and supports around helping people to move through the due diligence process. But that still is going to take time, even if you are really like an established organization with a lot of the structures in place already. And so the things that we'll be looking for in due diligence are, is it a legally registered business? Are there any lawsuits or loans or liens pending against it? Has there been any evidence of corruption? So there's those kind of pieces. But also, do you have a financial system in place, a recognized financial system in place with the appropriate supports to be able to do the reporting that you need so that we can monitor and track the financial contributions that we're making? Are they eligible expenses? Have they been spent the way you said they were going to be spent, or that you said you spent them on? So we need to make sure that that system is in place. And if it's not in place, helping to support you to get them in place. Other things are around the evaluation. And so we are to develop and test an idea and to get a proof of concept about your innovation. And so we need to be able to measure whether it's working. And we want to support you to get evaluation metrics that allow you to be able to prove that it's working, so that if you get to a point where you've demonstrated a proof of concept, you've demonstrated that this works, you can start going for other funding sources, whether it's, you know, trying to get government funding because it's a social innovation that you think has a positive impact on a group of people that the government should be funding, but they don't fund anything unless it's got a proof of concept. Or maybe it's your gadget or your device or your prototype. You've now tested it, you have a proof of concept. We still want to be able to help you, support you to have that evidence to show potential investors, this is a proven device. This is how it works. This is what, you know, the market analysis, this is what people think of it. This is how much they used it or how much they engaged with it. So we want to be able to help support that evaluation piece, getting that proof of concept. And then we're also going to be able to say, this is the impact of our program. And so we'll be looking to work with the whoever are funded to say, how do you work within what we want to be able to measure, right? We want to measure that we had an impact on gender equality. We want to measure that we were able to support more Indigenous innovation. And we want to be able to, to support those kinds of pieces. So there's the financial aspect, there's the legal aspects, there's the knowledge measurement and evaluation and learning pieces that we'll support through due diligence. There's a whole funding agreement that we need to kind of work through with you and potentially negotiate a whole budget piece. How do you, like, what are you spending the money on, and working through with you to make sure they're eligible expenses, when we're going to deliver them. So that, like I said, that is going to take some time to work through. And then we're also wanting to support making sure you have the strategic documents and the structures that you need in place to be able to deliver your program if you need support with that.
Thank you, Sarah. Jody, let us know if that answers your question. And Amanda is asking, is it intended that this fund be the sole funder of the innovation development? Indigenous women organizations typically have to submit multiple applications to complete projects. Is it an issue if we access more than one pot of funding?
Yeah, no, it is not an issue if you access more than one pot of funds. And in fact, that could lend support that you have lots of people supporting you. And we just need the spending that the application needs to spend money or to support the innovation development and testing phase. And so if you have other pots of funds that are supporting the organization operations, or other pots of funds that are supporting other parts of the development, right? So this fund is up to $250,000, but if you have another donor who says, you can get this fund, I will match your funds and you'll have $500,000 to do this work, then that would be amazing. That would be great.
Great. Sandra is asking, she gives a bit of background, and she has a project led by an Indigenous woman that works primarily with Indigenous people. And what they do is workshops grounded in Indigenous principles to build skills for healthier relationships. And they know their work is impactful. Evaluating it has been challenging or tricky. She would like to apply for funding to better understand impacts over time. And the question is, can we apply to provide Indigenous participants with a fee to help support their ongoing involvement in the research over a 2-year period?
Can we apply to provide Indigenous participants with a fee to help support their ongoing involvement in the research over a 2-year period? I'm not sure I totally understand the question, Sandra. Let me just think about that in the back of my head. Is this innovation development and testing? Like, so speaking to the program is how innovative is it and relevant to gender equality? You are not looking to develop that innovation, but rather to support the testing that you already have in place. It might not meet the relevant piece or the innovation piece. But if you're speaking to how this is an innovation and you want to make it more effective, or to scale it, or to use the information that you have to make it, to advance it. I have to think about this question a little bit more. Can I come back to it? I don't see Sandra on the.
Yeah, she's waving. She's waving.
Waving. Oh, there she is. Sorry,
Sandra's here.
I've got my grid going and it's all on the small screen. I'm gonna just maybe see if I can make it.
I guess it's two questions. One of them is the eligibility of what she wants to apply for, and the second one is if you can. Does this qualify under the salaries, Sarah? If they were compensating participants?
Salaries are an eligible expense. So I'm sorry, I'm getting confused with the question again. Layla, can you repeat?
Yeah, so from the first part is she's explaining her project to see if it's eligible, and you have to think about that. But then her specific question at the end is if she has Indigenous participants, right? And she wants to provide them a fee for their involvement. So that would be like a compensation, right?
Yes, yes, you can. Honoraria is an eligible expense under the initiative. And so if you're a funded project and you wanted to give honoraria to the participants, then that would be an eligible expense.
Yeah. Thank you. And we'll address the first part of the post later. And Gail is asking, let's see, do you have a question, Gail? Let's see if it's bringing to communities. I wonder, I imagine this question is about the eligibility of the project, and let us know if it's not. Bringing to communities digital equipment to empower women to start their own micro business with this technology. That's the project.
Yeah, so it sounds like an innovative adaptation of something that already exists to a population that is, to empower, Indigenous women. That sounds like it would be an eligible project.
Great. And we have some good news from Jody, who said that now she has everything that we need, and she will submit today. So thank you, Jody. And Sandra says it's complicated. So yeah, we'll address it after, or maybe we'll email you, Sandra. And with Isabel is asking what a percentage is recommended to donate to Indigenous for the for-profit projects.
Okay. So this fund is to develop and test innovative ideas, and we can't fund the commercial activities that are intended to generate profit during the project phase. And so if you're developing profit, then all of it needs to be donated or reinvested into the development of the project. Now, profit is different than revenue. I just want to be clear that if you're selling products, that's not profit, right? If you have a gadget that costs you $6 to make, just in the materials, plus you have your time, plus you have all of the time you spent in developing it, plus you have the outreach or the promotion of the project and the materials. And so all of those other expenses add up to $10, and then you sell it for $10, then that's fine. You've generated the revenue to cover your expenses, but you're not generating any profit in this phase. But we're really focused on developing and testing your innovation. And so any profit, so if you already have that gadget and you know that if you sell it for $15, that you make $5 profit on each one of these gadgets, then you're not actually developing and testing the innovation. And I know this is like a super complex piece, but it's unfortunately, it's the current terms and conditions that we have to work with, that we're not looking to just scale, to just provide operational funds for your business. This is to develop and test innovation.
And your innovation might be something that you want to sell and make a profit from, right? Yeah.
And once you've developed and tested it, got a proof of concept, and you're then selling it afterwards, That has nothing to do with us because you're not under our project restraints anymore. Does that answer your question, Isabel?
Let us know. And Amanda's asking if you have any other ineligible expenses that you can list aside from capital purchases.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, thinking about things like, you know, the cost of goods sold means like if you're paying for the materials to, see, I even think that that would be eligible as long as you're not generating a profit. The big one is just that we can't fund capital. But it's like, it has to meet those other pieces around, you know, the differentiation between revenue and profit. And so like a social enterprise that's generating profit, but reinvest it entirely into, you know, its program to make it bigger, make it available to more people, or maybe they generate those profits into, you know, into a new social enterprise, or they put all of the proceeds at that time into something else. Like another cause that they feel passionate about is the idea that we're, I think, trying to support. But capital is not something that typically the government will fund ever, is to purchase land. Because what happens to it afterwards? If it doesn't succeed, we can't get that, you know, there's that, what happens to that property afterwards. And so we can purchase things like, you know, you can purchase computers if you identify that as a need. You know, someone might have a technology innovation and they want to make it more accessible to women in First Nation communities and leave them that piece of technology that may be included. But actually just purchasing land or buildings, renovating space can be included, but just purchasing land and buildings would not be.
And Isabel said that, so thank you. So I believe that answered her question, the one before. And Agnes wants to clarify that you are eligible for funding for manufacturing a working prototype.
Gosh, these are questions eligible for funding for manufacturing of a working prototype. Yes, I would think that that would be an eligible expense. If it's to develop, if it's to manufacture the prototype to develop and test the innovation.
Just a reminder that on this stage, we're checking if it's innovative and relevant. So we're not gonna look at the costs in detail yet, so no worries.
Yeah, there's no, if anyone who's been into the application process saw that there's no request for your budget at this time. I don't want to know if you're applying for 100,000 or 250,000, what you will spend the money on. We're looking, is it relevant and is it innovative?
Yeah. And we have another question about what is eligible funding. Improvements to a facility, for example, insulating a cabin for training.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be an eligible expense. I don't think that needs to go into your application or expression of interest at this stage. Again, what are you doing? Is it innovative? Is it relevant? And is it an eligible organization?
Great. And let's see if we have any more questions. There's no more on the chat box right now. We are up to date, and on SurveyMonkey, we're also up to date. Does anyone have any other questions? Oh, there's one more. These questions regarding how long the business needs to be active. I imagine, like, if it's a new business, like, can they apply?
Yeah. So it could be a new business. We're looking for innovative ideas. I keep repeating myself, and I know it sounds like I'm just saying the same thing over and over. We're looking for how innovative is it and how relevant is it to this call and to this challenge statement that we've put out. And so in the application phase, how long the business has been open might be one of the pieces that you use to prove how able you will be to operate this, but everyone starts somewhere. And so if this is about starting a new business because you have this really great idea, and we agree it's a really great idea, it's totally relevant to this funding call, but you're a brand new business, but you come in with 20 years of experience running small businesses or other kind of, you know, enterprises, or with managing things at your past life, like, then that we will work through that when it comes. But yes, anyone, whether it's a long established 100-year-old business that has a program or an innovation that it wants to develop and test, or if it's brand new, it's all eligible. We're looking for what's going to impact our communities the most and our people the most.
Great. If you have any other questions, please either use the link on SurveyMonkey to ask anonymously or the chat here. Let me check again to see if we have any other ones.
I'm going to look back at Sandra's, but I'll give it a minute to see if there's other questions that come up.
And again, we'll have another chance. I will send you all a reminder for next Wednesday in case you want to join again and you have additional questions. Same time, noon EST.
So just looking at your question again, Sandra, just like, so apply to better understand our impacts over time. So it sounds like what you have is like an innovative program, workshops grounded in, you know, to build skills for healthier relationships. And is it delivered in an innovative way? And it sounds like it's impactful. You're in the evaluation phase. So yes, you could apply to better understand the impacts over time. So that would be the testing. It sounds like you already have some work going on. Apply to give participants a fee. I mean, just getting those fees, you would have to be able to demonstrate that this is innovative and innovative and relevant. And that would be an eligible expense that we would work on if you were invited to the application phase. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions coming up?
We don't have any other questions. Oh yes, let's see. We have another comment. Oh, just someone thanking us.
It's Layla.
Jody thanking us.
So in the meantime, we can tell you about who our team are. So you see my name. I'm Sarah Wolf. I'm Anishinaabe from Northern Ontario. My First Nation is up in Anishinaabe-Aski Territory, Brunswick House First Nation, which is in a community between Timmins and Wawa in Northern Ontario, near Chapleau. I've been living in Toronto longer than I've lived in any other city in my life. I've been here for about 18 years. And my background before I came into innovation and impact investing and financy type stuff was for 20 years, over 20 years, I worked as a midwife and a nurse. And so I come from a health innovation background where we work to support Indigenous families in an urban context. But I've worked in lots of other contexts as well. I've worked in the UK, where I lived for almost 3 years. And I also worked for almost 3 years in Northwestern Ontario throughout the James Bay communities and Sioux Lookout regions, doing outpost nursing for a number of years as well in remote communities, isolated communities, fly-in communities. So I do come from a healthcare background, but I also was an entrepreneur for 15 plus years where I ran my own business, and I loved the administration and management parts of running my own business. So yeah, so I love the innovation development piece and the leadership pieces, and Now I'm looking forward to kind of midwifing new entrepreneurs through the business development process and new innovators through their innovation development and testing phases. Help you to birth your new babies.
And I am Miss Indigenous Innovation Initiative, but my name is Leila, and I'm the program officer supporting Sarah with this program. I am Indigenous from El Salvador, from Mayan background. And the last 6 years, I have been supporting entrepreneurs one-on-one, writing business plans and developing workshops. So I'm really excited to now help people through this program. Last chance for questions. Everyone's sending us really nice messages, but no more questions. Just confirming.
We can stay on for a bit longer. We still have 10 minutes on the call if anyone joins in late. Pierce, do you want to do a shout out as well as our illustrious male on the call? Do you want to unmute him, Leila?
Yes, absolutely.
Hi, folks. Thanks for letting me join in and listen. It helps me, I guess, understand how I can also address questions that we get to our email and to our social media and stuff. As you can see, my name is Pierce. I'm Inuk, originally from Tuktoyaktuk in the Northwest Territories, but I was raised in and around Toronto. I've been working with Sarah now as the program coordinator since I think the end of August last year. So it's been a few months, and I'm super excited to see all these exciting projects and proposals coming in.
Oh, I see another question. So asking, can the same organization apply for 2 applications with different ideas? And the answer is yes, Pamela. One organization, if they have multiple ideas, they can apply for more than one they can put in more than one expression of interest in this phase. You would need to have different leads on those projects. So the same organization can apply, but the lead must be different.
Thank you. I'll double check the survey monkey.
I'm on a call, Mom.
And I will post the Survey Monkey link again, just in case you guys come up with questions before next Wednesday, and then we can answer them.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for the nice messages.
We're really looking forward to seeing a lot of the ideas that are out there, and really kind of being able to demonstrate even that there's a need and a demand for this kind of funding and this kind of opportunity. Keep in mind, this is a this program or this initiative is a 6-year initiative, and we'll have multiple rounds of funding that are going to be similarly positioned around gender equality and innovation. The actual way that we can deliver it might slightly differ, but the intention will remain the same for this particular initiative. But there will be subsequent rounds, and if we are if we get so many really great ideas that we're overwhelmed by how many, we are going to be working on developing a program that we're calling our Innovation Development Program, where we'll be potentially inviting folks in to to develop their idea a little bit further along so that they're more ready to apply to or to be invited into that application phase. I can just also reiterate another piece around the expression of interest and then full application, this two-step process. If you were on the webinar last week, you'll remember that we said that this was the direction we got from a group of Indigenous women, our Gender Equality Reference Group. Indigenous women and gender diverse folks have been meeting with us regularly for several months to help us to see what this, what the form of this RFP or this call could take, and to try to address some of the challenges with just general funding applications for Indigenous entrepreneurs and Indigenous innovators. And we heard quite clearly that one of the big frustrations is the amount of time that you spend filling out an application and then finding out that you're not eligible for it. And so we've tried to step it up to, that if you're filling out a full application, that you're just filling out the steps in this expression of interest phase that is enough information to tell us whether your idea is innovative and relevant, that we can invite you to the full application phase. And so there'll be a maximum of 40 people that are applying to that phase. And we don't have an increased pot of funds if we have more applications. We have a limited pot of funds. And so if we had, 100 applications and we can only fund so many, a small number of applications versus if there's only 40 people who are invited to apply and invest a large amount of time that goes into filling out a full grant. That's what we were trying to balance, is making sure that people, they were investing their time into it as much as they could. But if your idea is really great, it's just that you haven't been able to articulate it quite enough, or it's not at that, you're still so early on in this phase that your idea might be really an innovative idea, but not quite relevant in that context, or maybe it's really relevant, but it's not quite innovative enough. We want to support people to really see how they can make it innovative, how they can make it relevant, to get ready for a subsequent round. So that will happen going down the road.
Is this from here?
I do see another question.
And just sorry, Isabel asked if we were gonna have a replay, and yes, we're going to. I will send you the link for a YouTube video where you can rewatch it.
Right.
And then Agnes does have a question. Can you qualify for international patent filing funding?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep. That is fine. So you can be, you have to be a registered organization, a legally registered organization in Canada, and have either be Indigenous led or have a meaningful relationship with an Indigenous community or people. And then obviously it needs to have the gender lens piece addressed. Outside of that, you might have a gadget that you want to market globally. And so you would need an international patent. That would be eligible expense.
It's here.
But we're not at that phase. We're at the expression of interest phase. So really focus on how is it innovative and how is it relevant.
Yeah. And I think we had a couple people join later. So just to let you know, if you join late, that you can still write your questions on the chat box. And I will also paste the link to Ask Anonymous questions.
Also, just to remind everyone that this is a learning process for us. This is the Indigenous Innovation Initiative is relatively new. We've not launched any funding calls before. We're working within Grand Challenges Canada. They have this really awesome innovation platform and all of the infrastructure. So we're being incubated while we're delivering this program and supported by a really great team. We're supported by a really great council of Indigenous leaders and knowledge keepers and people who've worked in entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, and social innovation for a long time. And so we have a lot of great guidance. Plus we have our Gender Equality Reference Group that's been supporting us to make sure that this program that is being launched is being done in a good way, as good as we can. We also recognize that this is a government funded process and that sometimes things are a bit annoying or frustrating because they don't match what you need. We're trying to make sure that we're trying to address things as best that we can. And we will continue to work to improve what our program looks like and how it delivers, to be as responsive as we can to what the needs are around innovation for our communities. Our vision is to improve people's lives with Indigenous innovation. And so we're working on all the ways that we can make our program as accessible as we can, as inclusive as we can, as impactful as we can, and as responsive to what the needs are of our community. I see people starting to drop off, and that's okay. And just other people are holding out for a couple more questions if there are any. We'll give it one or so more minutes.
And again, I will send everyone that signed up an invitation to join us next Wednesday at noon EST in case you have additional questions as you work through the application.
I am really grateful to everyone who joined us today, and to those who may have stepped off, but your questions were really, thoughtful, and it's helpful for us to get a pulse on where things are at. And I think we'll spend some time just really getting the message out around being innovative, like this phase really being around how do you make sure that your project is innovative and relevant to what we're doing, and that's what we're looking for right now. And all of those other pieces don't matter in this phase. We want to know, is it relevant and is it innovative, and how does it, how does it meet the needs of advancing gender equality for our communities. And that can be done in lots of creative ways. And keep, spreading the word as well, because there's a lot of people out there that don't know that what they're doing is innovative, or that it's creative, right? So innovation doesn't have to be like a technical gadget or something that's really an app or connected to something kind of modern and new. It can be how do we look back at our old teachings and our old ways and apply it to a new situation, right? We have lots of challenges in our communities. And so what is the challenge in your community that you're trying to address? What's your idea to do that? And, how is it different? How is it going to make that difference? So I wish everyone luck, and I look forward to ongoing working with everyone on this initiative as we move through our process. And again, we'll be here next week. So at that, it is 1 o'clock. So thanks to everyone for coming, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks for joining and for your question. And we had a virtual clap over there. So thank you, Agnes. I will send you the recording shortly, and thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.